What if the person you trusted with your entire life had been quietly tearing it apart behind your back? What if love turned out to be the most dangerous trap you ever stepped into? Olivia Carter had everything, or at least it looked that way from the outside. She stood in front of the floor-to-ceiling window of their Manhattan penthouse, watching the city lights shimmer below like scattered diamonds. Both of her hands rested gently on her round belly as she felt her daughter kick softly against her palm. 7 months pregnant. Yet she had never felt more alone. Ethan still wasn't home. She told herself he was working late again. She told herself the meetings had run long again. She told herself every beautiful lie a woman in love tells herself when the truth hurts too much to face. Their story had started 4 years earlier at a charity gala in Midtown. Ethan Brooks had crossed the marble floor with the confident, unhurried stride of a man who believed every room belonged to him. When he looked at Olivia, it felt like she was the only woman in the world. He was brilliant. He was charming. He was everything a woman could dream of. And Olivia fell for him completely, without hesitation. Within a year, they were married. They moved into a penthouse on Fifth Avenue and built what everyone around them called a fairy tale life. Ethan ran Brooks Capital, one of the most powerful investment firms on the East Coast, while Olivia managed their foundation that supported underprivileged children across the city. She was kind and warm, the type of woman who remembered every birthday, every name, and always showed up when someone needed help. But kindness, she would later discover, is often mistaken for weakness. The baby had been their shared dream. In fact, Ethan was the one who first brought up the idea of starting a family. One quiet Sunday morning, he had kissed her forehead and whispered that he wanted a daughter who looked exactly like her. Olivia believed every word. Now, at 11 at night, she sat alone on the white velvet sofa. Dinner had gone cold on the table. Her phone rang again and again with no answer from Ethan. Then she heard it. A laugh. Not hers. It drifted down the hallway of her own home. Olivia slowly stood up, one hand still resting on her belly. Her heart pounded as she followed the sound that was about to shatter everything she believed about the man she married. What happens when betrayal isn't outside your marriage, but living inside your own walls? What if the enemy already knows your name, your schedule, and every secret you ever whispered to your husband? Olivia pushed open the bedroom door at the end of the hallway, and in a single moment, the life she had spent 4 years building collapsed. Sophia Bennett, standing inside Olivia's bedroom, wearing Olivia's silk robe, holding Olivia's wine glass like someone who had been there so many times that the space no longer felt like someone else's home. It felt like hers. Ethan stood near the window, his shirt half unbuttoned. When his eyes landed on Olivia, the first thing she saw on his face wasn't guilt. It wasn't shame. It was annoyance. That expression alone answered every question she had been too afraid to ask for months. Sophia was tall, with sharp, dark eyes, and a beauty that felt dangerous, less like something meant to attract, and more like something meant to destroy. She looked at Olivia without flinching, without lowering her gaze, and without even a trace of apology. The way you look at a problem that's already been solved. "Olivia," Ethan said, his voice low and strangely rehearsed. "I can explain what you're seeing." "Don't," Olivia replied quietly. Her voice didn't shake. "Say another word." Sophia tilted her head slightly. A faint smile appeared on her lips, completely empty of warmth. "You really should have seen this coming," she said calmly. "Ethan and I have been together for over a year. I assumed someone in your circle would have told you by now." Over a year. Olivia was 7 months pregnant, which meant Ethan had been with Sophia through almost the entire pregnancy. While Olivia had been reading baby books and painting the nursery a soft shade of yellow, Ethan had been here, in this room, with her. Olivia looked at her husband one last time, waiting, hoping for something that resembled the man she had married. She waited for him to defend her, to choose her, to look at her like she still mattered. Instead, he turned toward the window. That silence was his answer, and it was louder than anything she had ever heard. Olivia turned and began walking toward the staircase, one hand resting protectively on her belly, while her heart quietly collapsed inside her chest. Then she heard footsteps behind her. Fast, intentional. She turned just as Sophia reached her, before Olivia could step back, before she could protect herself, before she could even speak. 2 hands slammed hard into her shoulders. The marble staircase rushed up toward her. And then the world went black. She ended up in Chicago, in a small apartment with thin walls and radiators that barely pushed out any heat. On her first night there, she sat on the floor with her back against the wall, and finally allowed herself to feel everything she had been too numb to process in that hospital bed. She mourned her daughter. She mourned her marriage. She mourned the version of herself who had trusted so deeply in people who never deserved that trust. On the 8th morning, she got up, washed her face, and stared at her reflection in the cracked bathroom mirror. Then she made a quiet promise out loud, meant for no one but herself. Never again. She signed up for night classes at a business school on the north side of the city and worked 2 jobs during the day to pay the tuition. She was exhausted almost all the time, but exhaustion felt better than emptiness. Moving forward felt better than drowning in grief. 18 months into that new life, she met Alexander Reed. He was 62, recently retired after running one of the largest private equity firms in the country. Every morning, he came into the coffee shop where Olivia worked the early shift. Every morning, he ordered the same black coffee and read the same stack of financial newspapers. One morning, Olivia corrected something he had said out loud about a failing acquisition strategy. He slowly lowered the newspaper and looked at her. Then he smiled. "Sit down," he said, "and tell me exactly how you would have handled it." That conversation lasted 4 hours. Alexander eventually became her mentor, and later, her investor. He recognized something rare in Olivia. He saw a mind that understood patterns, people, and power, and beneath all of that, he saw a hunger shaped by pain into something remarkable. Over the next 3 years, Olivia transformed Reed Carter Capital from a small investment fund into one of the fastest-growing firms in the country. She was strategic. She was precise. She was patient. And she was waiting. Because she had not forgotten a single name. Not Ethan. Not Sophia. And not the daughter she had never stopped believing might still be somewhere in the world. She came back, and nothing was ever the same. What happens when the woman everyone underestimated walks back into the room as the most powerful person in it? What if justice doesn't arrive loudly, but instead walks in wearing a tailored suit and quietly owns every share you borrowed to survive? 5 years after disappearing from their world, Olivia Carter returned to New York, and she didn't come back quietly. Every detail of her return had been planned with precision, patience, and absolutely no mercy. Brooks Capital had been struggling for 2 years. Ethan had made a string of disastrous investment decisions, and the firm was quietly bleeding money while desperately searching for a major outside investor to keep it from collapsing. That investor was Olivia. She walked into the shareholders' meeting on a Thursday morning, wearing a charcoal suit. Her hair was pulled back neatly, and her expression carried the calm confidence of someone who already knew how the story would end before it even began. Ethan didn't recognize her at first. Neither did Sophia, who now sat beside him as his official partner. Not until Olivia took the seat at the head of the table, opened her portfolio, and clearly spoke her name into the silence of the boardroom. The color drained from Ethan's face like water spilling from a glass. Sophia froze. "I have acquired 53% of Brooks Capital's shares over the past 4 months," Olivia said evenly, without taking her eyes off either of them. "Which means that as of today, I control this company and everything attached to it." But the shares weren't even the final blow. Because during those 5 years, Olivia had been doing something else besides building her empire. She had been searching. 3 months before that boardroom meeting, the private investigator she hired delivered a photograph. It showed a 5-year-old girl living with a family in Connecticut who had been told the child was an orphan. A little girl with Olivia's exact eyes. The truth about what Sophia had arranged that night unraveled everything at once. The police, the press, and the entire empire Ethan and Sophia had built on betrayal and stolen futures. Sophia was arrested. Ethan lost everything. And Olivia walked out of that building into the afternoon sunlight, holding her daughter's small hand in hers. She never looked back. 3 lessons from this story. Lesson 1. Kindness is not weakness, but giving it to the wrong people is a mistake we must learn to stop making. Olivia's kindness was never the problem. The problem was giving that kindness to someone like Ethan, who saw her warmth as something he could use and discard. Protecting your softness doesn't mean becoming cold. It means learning to be selective. Lesson 2. Selfishness destroys everything, including the selfish. Sophia's obsession with status and Ethan's cowardice were never really about power. They were about fear and insecurity, hiding behind expensive suits and polished appearances. Every move they made to protect themselves ultimately destroyed them, because greed and cruelty are not foundations. They are countdowns. Lesson 3. Healing and strategy can exist at the same time. Olivia didn't choose between grieving and rebuilding her life. She did both. She honored her pain while turning it into something powerful. The most dangerous person in any room isn't the loudest one. It's the one who turned their suffering into a blueprint.